everybody. It's August the 22nd, 2025, coming to you live from Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is Into the Fire, episode number 63. Number 63, holy cow. And you know what else is crazy? We didn't have any issues tonight. For once. How cool is that? We have a guest on tonight that, honestly, I dressed up for this guest. I mean, I just don't have people like this guy come on here each and every night. All of my guests are epic, make no mistake about it. But as far as people that are famous, and Mark, I didn't tell you about some of the famous guests. I've had Steve-O sitting right here in my living room from Jackass, and I'm sure you've heard of him. And I've also had Larry Wilcox from Chips. But when we're talking about current famous people that are known throughout the country, this is one of the most recognizable sheriffs out there in the country, out in the United States, period. I want to thank Phyllis for buying one of my coffee cups. The merchandise has hit, and some of the merchandise that I wasn't quite a big fan of, that has been since removed. And I've been told that the stuff that I kind of wanted to see coming on is going to be there. So hopefully that'll be good. Hey, Danny, welcome. And hello to all of my other faithful people, from Sally to Kathy and Steph. And I see everybody that I'm seeing just all the faithful people here, and I want to thank you so much. This is going to be fun. We've got him for about an hour, and after that, he's got other obligations. And I just am honored that he has spent the evening with us tonight, because this is going to be a lot of fun. And he's somebody that I absolutely respect in the world of law enforcement. So let's get right to it. I don't want to waste any time. Basically, he's former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, also known as the American Sheriff. After being a business owner for over a decade, he joined the world of law enforcement in his 30s and has thrived as a leader in the field from day one. Valedictorian of his training class, Rookie of the Year, Officer of the Year, Detective of the Year, and now former Sheriff of Pinal County. He has always risen to every challenge in his path. His empowering leadership style, Western attire, and huge smile have set him apart from his peers, and his no-nonsense approach to law enforcement has made him a beacon of hope to many in his county and all over the world. Lamb is a frequent guest on Fox News and other national outlets. Lamb was featured in 20-plus episodes of the #1 rated TV show Live PD on A&E from 2017 to 2018. He was featured in season 5 of 60 Days In, which, by the way, happens to be one of my favorite seasons of that show. And he had a major role in a production which is currently airing on Netflix. And Lamb also co-hosted 20 episodes of Live PD Wanted on A&E with Tom Morris Jr. and Michele Sigona, and was set to come back for 10 more episodes in July 2020, but it was postponed due to COVID. And I got hit with COVID problems too, believe me. With an attitude of fear not, do right, and common sense approach, his patriotism is as infectious as his positive attitude. And I want to welcome one of the most well-respected, well-known sheriffs in this country, Mark Lamb. How you doing, buddy? Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm doing great, Jason, and thank you for the intro. Was some of that stuff AI?
Yeah, you know what? I wrote some of it. I took some of it from places. I used AI a little bit. It sounded good, I thought, but hopefully
great. Phyllis, hello. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. Like it was, most people don't realize that not only did we do Live PD, and I don't know, we probably did more than 20 episodes. I co-hosted Live PD Wanted, and very few people realize that. Even though it was a top 10 show for a while, it was fun to do. But yeah, thank you for the intro, and thanks for having me on, and thank you everybody here tonight. So
I appreciate it. You know, I've been through Pinal County a few times. I didn't realize until I was kind of researching tonight that the Superstition Mountains is in your county, and that's one of the most beautiful parts of Arizona, actually. And
it is.
So,
and you forgot.
It is.
You forgot one key thing that everybody knows me for now. So I used to be Sheriff Lamb. Now I'm Frank's boss. I was Frank Fridays with Frank's boss for, really we kicked off Fridays with Frank. He's an amazing guy. He's still out there doing it. So anybody out there knows Fridays with Frank. I've now become Frank's boss. I go speak places and then I'll say, hey, does anybody have any questions? And people say, yeah, where's Frank? So Frank has become very popular.
Good. I like to hear that. And so tell us. Let's start off with: Are you a native from Arizona?
No, I was actually born and raised in Hilo, Hawaii. I was born in Hawaii, and then we moved to the Philippines when I was 11, and then we came back to Arizona, which is where my dad was from. Look, I'm a descendant of 8 of the occupants of the Mayflower. The Lamb side came in 1630. We were pioneers in Arizona. So I had a long history here. I just happened to be raised other places. Came back to Arizona, and then we moved to Panama, and then I lived in Argentina for a couple of years. So I've been all over, but I consider myself an Arizonan at heart and a Hawaiian as well. My wife says, "You're not Hawaiian." I said, "I was born there. I'm Hawaiian. I was raised there."
No, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I've got a lot of relatives that live in Arizona, and they're huge fans of you. So, and I think you might even know one of them. It's Chantel, my cousin. And I think I don't know if you know her or not, but she knows your secretary from back in the day. So that's kind of how we ended up getting introduced probably 2 years ago. So, but nevertheless, so how did you get started? You had a business career before. What was that business career before law enforcement?
I'd done a couple different things because I was in sales. So I'd kind of caught up. I'd come home from Argentina and actually got scouted to play baseball. But then, I don't know, I was just in a different phase in life. I wanted to get married and move on. And so I ended up owning my own businesses. I had some concrete resurfacing. I sold some pest control. I ended up owning a paintball store. I had a short stint, not a short. I was a herdsman on a dairy for several years. But I got to about 33 years old. I was kind of, I had a successful business. I was doing pigeon control, but I just didn't feel complete. I didn't feel like anything I did every day was having an impact on society. And so I just was, I don't know, I was looking for something more. My neighbor happened to be a police officer with an Indian reservation near Mesa, Tempe, and Scottsdale. And he asked me to go on a ride along. So I was doing business and had never in my life thought about being a cop. Not once did it ever cross my mind. Nobody in my family was a cop. Nobody in my wife's family was a cop. This was completely out of left field for me when I went on this ride along.
Yeah. Wow. That is kind of out of left field. If you're 33 and you hadn't even thought about it, and then you do this ride along, and then all of a sudden you made a decision to make the leap into law enforcement. Where'd you start out?
Well, I go on this ride along. There was a call for a dad who had found a 20-year-old with his 14-year-old daughter, and they get into a scuffle. Guy runs out the back, and we show up. And then on the reservation, you'll have like desert area, and then behind the desert area, you'll have, sometimes you'll have an old abandoned travel trailer. Well, that's how this was. There was an old abandoned travel trailer, and so I'm out there. They let me out of the car, and I'm out there armed with a flashlight and courage. I walk out there and I look in the window of this travel trailer and I see amongst all the trash and debris what I think is a quarter size of skin. And so I said to him, I was like, hey, man, I think this guy's in here. And so they go in there, they move all the trash and debris. Sure enough, he's there. And they grab him, they rough him up, they tase him, put him in cuffs. I went home that morning and woke my wife up and I said, honey, I'm going to be a cop. And 6 months later, I was in the academy and on my way to be the career in law enforcement. But that's how it started. It was one ride along, one night, one call, and I was hooked. And I knew this is exactly what I need to do. And I finally had found something where I felt like I was doing something for society and fulfilled at night when I came home.
Yeah. And what year was that when you ended up starting?
That was in 2006 is when I went to the academy. I graduated in the academy in 2006. I was in the academy in 2006.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd been a cop for quite a while. So you just, well, not forever, but about 8 years when you ended up starting. So then you go from there, you work for this agency, and it's that other patch. It's not the Pinal County patch. It's that other agency. What's the name of it?
Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian Community.
Yeah. And so how many officers did they have there? Probably not too many.
No, believe it or not. I mean, if you want to see a lot of policing, go to a reservation. Typically, some of those reservations that have a lot of money will have a lot of cops. I think they're at like 250 sworn now. But even back then, we were still probably 130 to 150 probably for a reservation that had a population of about 5,000. That population would fluctuate during the day because it had a major interstate that ran through it, or a state highway, and then it also had a couple casinos. So it had a lot of traffic coming through there during the day, but people that lived out there was about 5,000 people.
Yeah. And so then you stay there for quite some time, and you made the best of it there. And then all of a sudden, at what point in time did it cross your mind to run? And what was the reason for you to run for Pinal County Sheriff?
I had one of the best jobs in the agency. I was a gang and drug detective. We had a great squad. I had a take-home car, which most of the guys at that agency didn't have. My career was on the rise, but I didn't like the direction of the country. I noticed there was a couple things that I had a problem with. Number one, I had a problem with the direction of the country. Just to be honest, it was during Obama's time, and I thought he was really driving a wedge between law enforcement and the community. And then I also realized we had a real lack of leadership, real leadership in this profession. And so I didn't want to be the guy that just complained about it. So I thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to run for sheriff. And my guys that I worked with thought I was crazy when I told them. And I said, no, man, seriously, I'm going to run for sheriff. They said, whatever. 6 months later, within weeks, I had put in my application. It took 6 months to get hired on at the county, maybe even a little bit longer. It took 6 months before I even heard from them. But in 2012, I got hired on and went out to the county and began my career out there. I took a $25,000 pay cut to do it, but I knew what the end goal was, and the end goal was to run for sheriff. And went out, started my career as a deputy, and was there for a few years before I realized I needed to step away to be able to run for sheriff. And so I went back out into the private sector, stayed on as a reserve, built up my business, and made the run for sheriff.
Wow. Okay. So I'm learning a lot of things here. So you literally, you go out there and you become a deputy for a little bit, and you take a huge cut. That's a huge cut in pay, Mark. That's noticeable. But it just all seems to come together, and then you end up running. And how decisive of a win did you have when you ran?
Well, first of all, I had a point in about August of 2015. So the election cycle was going to be end of 2015. Election would be in 2016. And I was working in Utah at the time. That's where a lot of our business was for our marketing company. And staying with my business partner up there, traveling back and forth. Because I had 5 kids, it wasn't easy I couldn't just move everybody up there. And I knew that the end goal was to run for sheriff. So one day I called my wife, and I'd been reading a lot of articles and looking into running for office, running for sheriff. I called her one day and I said, honey, I don't know. The business is going good. I'm reading a lot about it. Sounds like it sucks it sounds like it's not a fun experience to run for office. So maybe we give it 4 years and we'll do it down the road. And she says, whatever you think, I support you. But for the next 48 hours, I could not shake the feeling and the thought of running for sheriff. I would all night, all day while I was out working, running my business, all I could think about was running for sheriff. So I called my wife back 2 days later and I just said, screw it, let's do it. And that's kind of been my attitude on a lot of things. I'm just like, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it looks a little scary. It's dark. You don't know where the path leads, but I'm just like, screw it. Let's do it. And we did. I came back and I started running it and putting my campaign together. And fortunately, the business shifted to where I was in Arizona a lot more. And I was able to be successful. I was the underdog big time. I banked on the fact that the sheriff was going to run for Congress, which he did. And then I was running against the chief deputy. Now, the chief deputy, everybody thought he would win. He thought he would win. And we just grinded it out. We outworked them. We out-hustled them. And towards the end, the night of the election, they thought they were going to win. And I was laughing. I thought, we're going to blow these guys away. We're going to win 60-40 at least.
Yeah.
And we actually won 64 to 36%.
Wow.
And I became the 24th sheriff of Pinal County in January 1st of 2017.
Wow, what an honor. And that's not a small jurisdiction either. That's over 5,300 square miles.
So it's the size of the state of Connecticut, 5,400 square miles. Yep, there you go. It's the size of the state of Connecticut. There's only 15 counties in the state of Arizona. This is the third largest population-wise, not land-wise, but population-wise, behind Phoenix and then Tucson. So behind Maricopa County and Pima County, then there's Pinal County. And we're right between Maricopa County and Pima County, so between Phoenix and Tucson.
Yeah, with two major interstates that run through there, I-8 and I-10. Yep. So major pipelines, I'm guessing, of narcotics that are traveling right through your area, not to mention all the state roads and stuff like that coming up from Mexico. And how far away from Mexico are you guys?
So on the southern end of our county, where there's an Indian reservation, the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, we are 52 miles off the border there, and we are 77 miles off the border, something like that, 75 miles off the border, where the I-10 intersects with my county line. And so we are, we're not right on the border, but we suffered from the trafficking piece. Even during the first Trump administration, when they had kind of had some really good success stopping a lot of that illegal immigration and drug trafficking, we still had a problem in Pinal County because they would come through the desert and dump out onto the I-8 and right into our communities. And I would take politicians out and show them all day long, like, look at all this. Look at all the camouflage clothes and the carpet shoes and the water jugs and the residue of the marijuana bells and all this other stuff. And then we had all the human trafficking that wasn't as bad during the first Trump administration, but under this last 4 years, it was off the charts. We had one of our canines one day, he had 7 traffic stops. All 7 of those traffic stops were human load vehicles. It was every day on the I-10, the I-8, even on some of our other highways that they tried to bypass Pinal County. They still had to come through Pinal County, which is why our county became so important, is because we were treated by the Border Patrol as a Tier 1 county. They treated us as if we were a border county because of all the stuff coming through the county, all the drugs, all the people. If we didn't stop them in Pinal County, it was going to get to Phoenix, and then it would be spread throughout the rest of the country, go to places like Oklahoma, Nebraska, Chicago, New York. And so we felt the real importance, and we worked hard to try to stop as much of that as we could.
Yeah. So you end up going there, and you show up at work your first day as sheriff. I'm sure that is, I always hear, I'm a city cop. So, but I've always heard that, sometimes with new administrations, there's going to be a house cleaning, but then again, you can't just fire everybody and start all over. You have to really work with what you got. So how was that transition for you to you owned businesses, so you kind of knew how to run stuff, but what was that like? Now you're running a business that's got over 200 deputies or more, and that's a huge undertaking, I would assume.
Well, our business was 600 employees, 250 sworn, 180 in the jail, 1,500 bed jail. We had a budget of over $60 million. And all of a sudden you walk in and they hand you the keys, and nobody really, the previous outgoing administration had been they weren't helpful. It didn't really matter anyway, because we had to come through and change a lot of the stuff up, the budget, a lot of that. But yeah, that first day, you're just like, well, I'm in charge now. I'm the guy that has to make the decisions as to what happens in this agency. We had a morale issue we had to deal with. We had budgeting issue we had to deal with. There was a terrible relationship between the county and the sheriff's office. We had to fix that. We had to really gain the trust and the confidence of the community. The business piece of it, in business, I could have easily have just gone in and fired everybody. In law enforcement, you can't do that. Yeah. You can only get rid of the people that are at will. Anybody else, the Officer Bill of Rights in Arizona prevents you from getting rid of them. You have to have cause to get rid of them, or you have to eliminate their position. What I came in with was the approach of, there was a lot of them that left before I even came in. The ones that were left, I gave them an honest, we did a 30, 60, or 90 day, we went and looked at their work product, their position, all of that. We took it at 30, 60, and 90 days, depending on where they were at, what their position was, and how intricate that position was. In the end, we ended up getting rid of pretty much everybody that was in an at-will position under the previous administration. And even some of the non-at-will positions we got rid of because it just didn't work out. If I were to go back, I would just get rid of them from the beginning. I wouldn't have done the 30, 60, and 90 day. They caused me some problems initially. And, you know, you're like a baby deer on ice. You're trying to get your footing. And here they are coming at, you know, you're trying to figure it all out. And you're still fighting against some of the ones that were kind of undermining you on the backside. So, right. If I had to do one thing over, I would probably go back and just say, "Hey, look, folks, thanks for your service, but we're gonna go a different route." I wouldn't be mean about it. I would just say, "This isn't a part of our new plan." I try to treat all this stuff like business, but I also understand there's people involved. And so I always try to bring the heart to it. But in the end, you have to make business decisions. You have investors, which are your taxpayers. You have your employees you have to watch out for. And we had a lot of work to do to get our employees raises, which they hadn't had for 11 years. So there was a lot of work that had to be done.
Yeah. And how did you do that? How did you get them raises? Is it from cuts elsewhere, or is that kind of the...
Believe it or not, we didn't cut. What we did was we knew that one of the problems was there was a bad relationship between the county and the community. And so we reached out to the county before I even took over. And I said, "Hey, I would love to talk to you." They said, this was county finance. They said, "Can we call you right back?" So they called me back. And then they said, "We're sorry. We've never gotten a call from the sheriff. We didn't know how to respond to it." And so I said, "Nah, that shocks me. We want to sit down and we want to work with you on figuring out this budget." And so immediately we got buy-in from the county. And then they also wanted a survey done. They were trying to do a survey that the previous administration had said, "We don't want to do it." And I said, and frankly, I get that. I get that wide approach, but this was an easy win for me. I just went in and said, "Yeah, we'll do it as long as if they come back and say we need more people, that you'll honor that." And they said, "Absolutely." Well, it did come back and say we needed these positions and these positions. And so then we worked with the county again to say, "Look, I'm not going to make you do it all at once. Let's figure out how we can do this to where we can do it within our budget without stressing out the county or the taxpayer." And so we just systematically worked with them. And immediately we started getting raises. We got our guys on a legitimate pay scale. They got raises every year. And right before I left, my deputies got a 10% raise last year. And this year, our detention officers just got, I think, about a 10% raise. No, excuse me, 20%. A 20% raise last year. And the detention officers, I think, just got a 20% raise this year. Wow. Work that we started last year. So we did a lot of work and our deputies appreciated it. We made small things like you can have facial hair, or the previous administration made them cover up their tattoos. And we said, "Look, as long as it's not anything obscene, we're okay with you having your tattoos showing." Just little victories like that with the troops, we started to get the morale back up. And they could see, hey, this sheriff is going to work he's working hard for us. I mean, you don't win them over overnight. You have to do it day in and day out. You got to go out and work with them, which is what I did. I see Carrie here said she loved watching Live PD. Live PD, I'll just go real quick. They came in right when I won the election, and I was like, look, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I don't want to jump into this. But 6 months into it, I said, hey, let's go back to live PD and see if they're interested. I was actually at a sheriff's conference in Colorado on a Monday. I told my chief, hey, call live PD and see if they're still interested. He calls them on Monday. I was still in Colorado on Friday on my way home, and live PD was already in our agency filming by Friday. That's how fast that went. And from there, it just took off. And it was, I loved it because it showcased the good work that our men and women were doing every day.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we've been on the first 48 for, our city alone, and our unit has been on there for over 11 years. And I'll tell you something, Mark. I'm shocked that there's not other police departments fighting for the chance to be on that show. I don't get it. It's fascinating to me, all of the fear of being transparent. I mean, if you're doing your thing, I mean, it's been a blessing for us. I can't say it enough. And the level of professionalism with the ITV and A&E to boot, we were on A&E as well. So kind of you were like a sister show to us, essentially. But the public really loved live PD, and I thought that was great.
I thought the same thing. I couldn't understand why agencies weren't using social media, first of all. And I couldn't understand why they weren't setting the narrative. The media was setting the narrative on them. And then I couldn't understand why agencies wouldn't want to do live PD. A lot of it is you get leaders that are afraid. They want to control what comes out. And I think then in the end, that tends to hurt them. If they were open about it with the community and showcase it, I think you end up winning out the community's hearts and minds, and they see you very different. And then what we wanted to do is we also wanted to showcase our detention officers, because that's an important part of the sheriff's office. And so we accepted to do live PD. Now, mind you, I had career law enforcement guys as my chiefs that I brought in, and they were so uncomfortable. They're like, whoa, Sheriff, this is way outside our comfort zone. I said, trust me, this is going to work. We're taking a business approach to this. We are going to market our product. We have taxpayers that are our investors, and we want to show them what we're doing with their money. And I promise you, this will help us get raises for our guys. And it all did. It all benefited the community. Our population growth grew in here. People wanted to come live in Pinal County. Yeah. And then obviously COVID, we only stepped on the gas there, and more people wanted to come. But I don't understand why guys don't do it either. And on a side note, before I forget, Chief McCrory, Mark McCrory from Tulsa, is out here as a chief in one of the agencies in our county. And one of my good friends who I think the world of and who I love his leadership style is Travis Yates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know them both very well. Well, I didn't know McCrory. I knew McCrory, but, he was a deputy chief and I was a peasant. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not like I was chopping it up with him, but I know I've worked around him. He was my deputy chief and very well respected. So I know he's been out there for a long time. So that's good that you know him. So, but anyway, so you guys get to a point, and tell both of them I said hello if you get if you think of it down the line and you see him. Travis Yates is doing a lot of good out there with talking about leadership and
he touches nerves. A lot of these leaders don't like to hear what he has to say, and I'm kind of the same way. Like I think that in many ways our leadership has failed us in this profession. We saw it on full display in 2020. We saw just agencies bending the knee. We saw agencies that were scared to defend the people's rights. And I was disappointed to see some of the law enforcement across this country and the approach they took, and the failure to protect their citizens and their constitutional rights during COVID and during 2020 and all that stuff. And I wish that we had a different leadership and stronger leadership. And instead of trying to badmouth them, I know I am right now, but I'm not calling them out individually. I wanted to say, what I did is I just tried to lead by example, and I tried to stand on my own 2 feet. And hopefully people would notice and take courage and say, if Sheriff Lamb can do it, I can do it too. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, as a sheriff, did you get with the neighboring sheriffs? And if you did, were they helpful in trying to kind of show you the ropes? or were their situations a little bit kind of falling behind as well?
Well, I think that anytime you can get with a leader of an organization and glean from them, something, I think you've got to do it. And one of the things that helped me getting in with all the sheriffs, because you're jumping into a club. You've got these sheriffs now. There's this new guy, and he's kind of flash. They look at you, and then they call me Hollywood now because we did all those other things. But I went to every single one of their offices. I went and sat down in front of them, and I said, guys, tell me about do you have advice for me? And every single one of them, that made our relationships ramp up immediately. And we had mutual respect for each other. And really it benefited me because I was able to go to each one of those counties, each one of these sheriffs, and sit down with them and talk through it and learn from them. And I was able to call them when I had questions. So yeah, it was a huge benefit to me. I saw Danny ask if I got the Buford Buster Award. I just did this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
Danny actually, he's actually related to the Hathcocks, which is the bad side that Buford Buster. I'm serious. He's actually a relative of the Hathcocks, which is anyway. So yeah, he knows a lot about that stuff, and that's fun. Congratulations on getting that. That's a big deal.
Well,
so
thank you. Well, I'll tell you, that's interesting out there in that area because there is a faction of people that are like, that's not what happened. And then there's the people that say, that is exactly what happened. Look, right. I was honored that I didn't get into all that. I just looked at it and said, this is an award for a sheriff's award. I was honored to get it. Surprisingly, a lot of people know who Buford Buster is. I've become really good friends with the sheriff now of McNairy County, and I'm actually trying to buy a property in McNairy County right now. I'm working on trying to buy a ranch out in McNairy County.
Nice.
So,
yeah,
but thank you, Terry, for the congratulations as well.
Yeah, Danny actually rode in the back seat of Buford Buster's sheriff's car back when he was a kid.
Cool.
I mean, it's true. Cool. Yeah. But anyway, so you make a point you've already been introduced to the television side of things. So that probably made it a little bit of an easier transition or an easier decision to allow for 60 days in to come into your town. But I think that, bringing them into a jail, what was that like? And what was the decision making of doing that? Is that, once again, to improve your people? Let's find out what's going on. Let's maybe bring some money to us, things along that nature. But is that kind of right? Or how did all that go about?
Well, most people don't realize this, but we started filming with Live PD, and it was almost at the same time that 60 Days In approached us within a month or two. So I think began this film. We started with 60 Days In, with Live PD and in mid 2017, and by late 2017, we were in serious talks with 60 Days In. Now, like I told you, my guys, when I went to them and I go, hey guys, I got something else I want to talk to you about. They're like, Sheriff, we can't do this. I said, trust me, it'll be fine. We're going to do it. It was nerve-wracking. It was a tough show to do because we finally get them in there. We had a couple issues. One of the guys that originally came out as one of their directors, we did our first day where we come in and we meet with all of the candidates, the participants, I should say. And we start right away, we start thinking, man, this dude's on drugs. And we call the producer at the end of the day and we're like, look, your boy's on drugs, man. And I don't think we're a little nervous. And then there were some issues with leaving some equipment in the jail. And so we were really close to pulling the plug. And kudos to the producer. He's an awesome guy, good friend. And he said, look, I'm going to personally oversee this. So the day we're going to put our first guy in there, we have to pump the brakes and pull the plug. They call us while he's literally on the way to the jail. they call us and say, Sheriff, don't bring him in. We have to make an adjustment. And we had to put it on a 2-week hiatus. They sent all the candidates, the participants they said, hey, where do you want to go? We'll pay for you to go somewhere for 2 weeks. So they sent him out for 2 weeks. They come back in and he's like, look, Sheriff, I'm going to personally oversee this. Please let us stay in this deal. Because we could have just said, hey, because we were right. The guy was on drugs. I think he ended up going out to rehab, and I don't know where he's at now, but we were spot on. He was on drugs. And so it was on life support right at the beginning. But once they got going, there was a lot going on, and we were seeing things in the jail that there was nothing earth shattering, but they were things that we were just complacent on. And it wasn't bad complacency. It's just natural to become to create a pattern. You know this as a homicide detective. Human beings have a natural tendency to create patterns. That's how a lot of them get caught. And in the jail, we're no different, or on the road. We create patterns in the way we do our work. Well, inmates have nothing else to do but watch those patterns. And then they start to figure things out. And so when we finished it, we learned a lot about just little tweaks we needed to make to have success and to fix some of the issues that we had in our jail. But that's how it came about, and it was being filmed at the same time. So I would film with 60 Days In during the day, and then I'm going and filming with Live PD, but I couldn't say anything about it. And a couple times I slipped and almost slipped up, but luckily the Live PD people didn't catch it. But they didn't know anything about it until we were all said and done, and then the show was produced, and then I think it ended up coming out at the beginning of 2019.
Amanda, show that clip of 60 Days In, just to remind people of the participants, which I think are memorable, from Pinal County.
She's beautiful. I want her.
Once I enter the pod, it really feels like this is it. It has really begun.
Go, man. Are we ready, bro?
Everybody in there does drugs. Everybody.
Whoa.
Everybody. Everybody.
That's a real drug man. 60 days inside.
She's out there telling people that we're undercover cops.
There was a lot of sign language going on, so that was a red flag there.
He works for the camera crew. I know.
If you come in here and you interview, you're a target.
Nobody in this part of question nothing I say. I don't give a who it is.
Are you gonna copy?
Rat.
I can't do this. I can't.
I can't be a chaplain here. I have to be a convict.
There has been a security breach. They just got played, and they now know who played them.
They're waiting for the green light.
We need to make sure all the participants are safe.
We're determining whether we have to shut the whole thing down.
I'm giving this about 10 minutes before I stand up in the middle of the table in the middle of the room and let the whole jail know what's going on. All right, it's about to get ugly as a right here. I'll see you shortly.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, were the inmates, I mean, listen, 60 Days In had been on for a while. It had been on for years, a few years at least. Were they not, I mean, wondering why all the cameras are all of a sudden getting put in there? Or were they pretty much just do it, slowly? Or how did that work? Because I would think that they would have had suspicions straight out of the gate.
Look, they have cameras on them every day. So even if I went in and put a bunch of new cameras on them, within 48 hours, they wouldn't care about them. They got cameras on them all the time. What we did was we did tell them, hey, because now you've got producers, you got people walking into the pods. So we said, look, we're doing a show, a border jail show about this. And so because the employees don't know either. Contrary to what people think, man, that was a pain in the neck to get your guys booked in so that nobody would know. And then you had all these personalities we were dealing with, and every single one of them screwed up their story right from the get-go. Yeah. I mean, you watching that preview, it was the best season in my opinion.
I agree. And, I'm not just saying it because you're here. I really, man, that's where I grew to just love your county. I thought it was awesome, really. So I agree. Well,
it was fun. It was fun, but it was nerve-wracking. And we missed. So Abner was one of the guys we had to pull out in the end. And it kind of started because of David. David said something. These guys figured it out. These inmates, well, some of them are dumb. They're not dumb. They are very astute on street smarts and stuff. And so they figure it out. And my chief wakes up at like 4 a.m. one morning, 3 a.m. And he says, I got to get Abner out. And so he calls down to the jail and he's like, hey, I need you to get Abner out. And we're at about day 45 probably at this point. And so he calls down there, and I don't think they showed this in the show. Well, Abner had woken up at the same time, and Abner's like, I got to get out of here. Whether it's a God thing, whatever, they both woke up that morning feeling like, hey, we got to get him out of here. We came in, we were able to get Abner out by about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And when we went back and watched the video, we realized that all those guys had put on their fighting shoes and they were getting ready to attack Abner. And I have no doubt that had we left him in there for even another 6 hours, they would have attacked him. And then what we did is over the next few days, we systematically pulled all of the other participants out. And I believe the last one we pulled out was Mark. And that was probably about at the 50-day mark or 52-day mark.
Yeah. Was he the one with the glasses?
Yeah, he's the one that in the beginning I'm like,
yeah, no way.
What are you in here for? Stealing pencils?
Yeah, right. Listen, he came out actually really impressive. And he kind of got
Mark ended up being the best one out of all of them. Yeah. He had the best information, and I was most impressed with Mark.
Yeah, I was too, actually. The one I was kind of surprised about was the police officer. You know, I just was like, Abner, I thought did an amazing job, honestly, but he was able to at least exist in there without many issues up until the end. But no, I thought it was a fantastic venture. And did you guys just do that for the one season, or did you guys do it for a second one as well?
Oh, there was no way we were going to be able to do it a second season because the inmates were up on. They caught on, and so we were able to do one season. And I mean, the intensity of it. It was real, man. People ask me all the time, is that real? And I was like, yeah, it's real. They may change some of the timelines around a little bit, but it's irrelevant timeline stuff where they show somebody doing something kind of mundane, which actually happened before another video. But in the end, the what you saw was what was going on in there.
Any regrets?
No. Like I'm not one of those people that has regrets unless you're making bad decisions. If you're trying to do something that's good and your heart's in the right place, and like my shirt says, fear not, do right. If you're trying to do right, I think that things sometimes don't work out, but I don't have regrets because I did what I thought was right. And I've just always tried to live life like that. You have regrets when you go off the deep end and you start doing stupid stuff, and then you look back and you're like, dadgum, I shouldn't have done that. But when you're trying to do what's right, I think you realize hindsight 2020, man, I could have probably done that a little different. But I don't have regrets for what we do, and I certainly didn't have a regret of doing that show. I thought it was great.
Well, let's talk about your website. You have a website where people can. Matter of fact, he's got an Instagram page. You can follow him there, but you can go to www.107consulting and tell us a little bit about that. What do we find when we go there?
One thing I've learned as my time in law enforcement as the sheriff is Police officers, they do such a great job. They go out and work in our communities every day, but very few of them have any knowledge about what business is. And so most people don't realize this statistic, and it's a sobering statistic that the average police officer will die within 5 years of retirement. Some states report that they only pay out 23 pay out for 23 months to people's retirement, and then those guys die. That's the average payout for a state we were talking to. I can't remember which state. So what we're doing is we are now teaching people about business, whether you're on the job, whether you're getting ready to retire, or whether you've already retired, or whether you come from the military, if you're a veteran. And frankly, we do it, anybody that wants to come in and start a business, and you want that camaraderie, that squad, we're here to help you every step of the way. We help you set up your first LLC. We teach you, we've got videos that teach you all about the different structures, what's right for you, marketing, taxes, those types of things. I have lawyers that you have access to. What we want is to give law enforcement and veterans and anybody that wants purpose. We want you to have new purpose in life. We live in the greatest country in the world, and right now with AI and everything out there, if you want to go out and start your own business, the ability to make money right now is off the charts. But you've got to go out and start that business, and a lot of cops are afraid to that first step. They don't know what to do. Well, that's what we do at 10-7 is we help them. And the other thing is when you retire, it goes radio silent. Like the next day, they shut off your email. They make you turn in all your gear. They shut off your email. Nobody calls you anymore. Your radio chatter you hear in your ear is no longer there. And you start to think, what the heck? What happened? And what we want is people to actually have purpose again. And so we're helping law enforcement and veterans and anybody that wants to start a business. Go to 10-7 Consulting. I also wrote this book, my newest book, third book. It's called 10-7 When Your Shift Ends and Your Life Begins.
Man, I love that.
10-7 is the term for us. It's going 10-7 means you're off duty. And so when your shift ends and your life begins, is the #1 bestseller for leadership on Amazon. And what it does is it really talks about taking that next step in life. And even if you're still on the job and you're working off duty and you don't have a business set up to offset the taxes, you better get on there and get something set up and get your company seasoned, take advantage of the tax write-offs, and build a business for the future. What this book is about is saying, look, you've served your community. You've developed a set of skills that are unlike it in the marketplace. Don't let them go to waste. Build your own business. Go out. Don't rely on somebody else to cut you a check. And one more thing, your pension is like a participation trophy. Unless you made a ton of money out in California, most of us are not going to have enough money to live off of in the pension. And so you've got to subsidize it. And instead of going and maybe being a Walmart greeter, which there's nothing wrong with that, I always tell my wife, I'll be the best daggum Walmart greeter when I finally decide to really hang it up. Or going and work in security. There's nothing wrong with that. But why not be the guy at the top? Why not be the guy that makes the decisions as opposed to actually having to worry about chain of command and all that? So we're helping guys. We want to give them purpose. Come out, get a business. Get your book. I'll send you the book if you're with a membership, and you can get it on Amazon or get it on our website. So that's
I love it. I love that. What a great idea.
10-7.
Yeah, what a great idea that I don't even know that anybody else has ever came up with a book like that, Mark. And how many books are out there about policing, but yet nobody mentions that. So good for you for doing that. That's definitely a must read for sure. And then you also got a couple, you've got 3 other books that come to mind. Now, one of them is a children's book, but there's one of them, American Sheriff. What's this one about?
So my son actually got in trouble. One of my kids, I have 5 kids. One of my kids actually had a drug problem. And it was probably it started around the time I was running for office. There is always, when you take more out of life, when you challenge life and you want to do great things, life will throw some things at you too, because it'll test your moxie. It'll test to see how tough you really are and whether it's going to reward the greatness or not. And one of those things we struggled with is a son that struggled with drugs, and it was years. And at one point we told my son, we were like, look, You cannot drive our cars. You cannot get in our cars and drive them. Somebody had saw him at a stoplight, hunched over, passed out. And so I left for an event one day, and I get a call, and it's my son, and he says, "Dad, I just hit a guy on a bike." And immediately your world just, and you know this is a problem. So we leave the event, we drive over, pull up. It's not far from our house. We see my son, his vehicle. I check on my son. He's okay. I walk back to the guy. He's laying on the ground being worked by the paramedics. And I'm just praying this guy doesn't die, because if this guy dies, we have a whole set of much bigger problems. Yeah. And fortunately, the guy did not die. But one of the toughest things I ever had to do was walk back over to my son and stand in front of him and look at him. And I said, "I'm sorry, but I have to leave you here. If I stay here, they're going to say that I influenced this case in some way." And I said, "You're on your own." And my wife and I walked away and got in our car and drove off. And I left them there surrounded by 8 deputies. Well, my son got charged with ag assault with a deadly weapon. The guy, obviously we had to pay out the guy. My son doesn't have any money. And I wasn't about to saddle my son with a lifetime of debt just because of, And so the only thing we could do was write books. So we wrote books to help pay for what happened. And so my wife and I went out and sold books every weekend. We went to gun shows. Fortunately, it opened the door for speaking events. But that book is called American Sheriff, Traditional Values in a Modern World. All the people that watched me on Live PD and 60 Days In, they said, "Sheriff, we want to know more about you." So this book is kind of like, it talks a little bit about my life and what I've been through, but it also talks about what I think are the traditional values in America that built this country and that we've kind of lost track with. My son ended up spending 6 months in my own jail, which that was even after I wrote my second book. I don't know if you have that picture, but my second book is called American Sheriff, Rules to Live By. There's a poem by Rudyard Kipling called If, and I love the poem. It's an amazing poem. It's about becoming a man, and I wanted to do a book on that poem. And so I took that poem, and for the different stanzas of the poem, I tell stories of the Founding Fathers, stories of hope and courage and determination. I tell some of my own stories, and that book is about that. And then obviously the children's book, Brave Books, who does an amazing books. They came to me and they said, "We'd love for you to be a partner on one of our books." I have to be honest, they did most of the writing, but they let me take the credit for it. I asked for one thing. I said, "You got to draw a little lamb police officer in there," which they did. Put him in there with a cowboy hat on in one of the pages. And then obviously my book here, 10-7 is my newest book. So I am no author. I'm no author. I just believe that you've got to share. If people don't share what they learn in life and what they experience in life, it's all for naught. And you've got to share those experiences and what you've been through, whether nobody reads it or whether 10 million people read it or 10 people read it. Somebody somewhere needs to hear what you've learned from this life.
And then your wife's book, let's not forget about that. Yeah.
Now, my wife's book is actually good. Unlike at the same time, so my wife and I both wrote books, and her book, people think it's a cookbook, but what we wanted to showcase was, she's been a homemaker for most of our marriage, and the sheriff's wife holding it all together behind the scenes in politics. You want to talk about books that don't teach our law enforcement, our veterans, how to, what to do after they retire. There's also no books for wives of elected officials, let alone sheriffs, and what we go through and the challenges we face. And so she wrote that book, and her book is great. She wrote a second book. Unfortunately, we launched her book literally a couple days before my son, the same son who, by the way, thankfully, thanks to God, was clean, got his life cleaned up. We had a daughter and my daughter-in-law. But unfortunately, just days after my wife released her second book, they were hit and killed by somebody driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Killed my 22-year-old son, my 11-month-old granddaughter, and my daughter-in-law were all killed in that accident.
Wow.
So neither one of our first two books talk about what all that, my son going to jail and losing my son and my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law. So yeah, we've been through some stuff, but so does everybody else. We understand it's given us a real perspective on life and real compassion for people with what they go through in this life.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for sharing that. That definitely, a lot of people certainly, I remember when that happened, Mark, and I immediately was just sick for you and your family, and just horrible situation. Man, I feel like I'm a better person from sitting here listening to you, Mark, today. I mean, honestly, you're inspiring me right now as you're sitting here talking, and just what you're talking about in those books. Holy cow. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be a cop to get those books. Those books are, I'm going to get them. I'm telling you, that 110.7, that I didn't know you even had that one. I'm excited about that one. That's going to be cool. And then on top of it, you're coming out with a podcast, but you already have a few episodes already out there. Let's mention that before we take off, because I want people to know about that.
10-7 with Sheriff Mark Lamb, and what I'm doing is finding veterans and people and law enforcement. We're talking about their careers, and then we're talking about business and how they transition from law enforcement or from being service in the military or just in their daily lives, and how they transitioned into the business world. Some of the things that they learned, some of the mistakes they've made. And what we want is those guys who come to 10-7 and who become members, we want them to not make the same mistakes that so many of us have made. We want you to be able to curb those mistakes and actually have success quicker in entrepreneurship. Although everybody's got to make mistakes to really grow, but we're trying to help with that. So the podcast is, I just did one with Sheriff Richard Jones in Butler County, Ohio. He's great. You'll see him on the news all the time. I've done one with a guy named Dan Newland, who is a good friend of mine who lives out in Florida, who's probably, if you live in the Orlando area, you have seen Dan Newland's signs. He is an injury attorney, but he was a cop forever and was a reserve cop. And we talk about that. We talked to my son-in-law, who was a military veteran. We've got a few more coming on, but we've already filmed probably 6 or 7 podcasts. I just did one today with Chief Deputy Matt Thomas, my chief deputy for 8 years. Talked about his career, the book he wrote. I mean, it's going to be great. And what we're doing is we're trying to inspire people. I appreciate the kind comments over here, the condolences and the kind comments. Like, life is tough. And this life is, there's a lot of negative and ugly stuff out there. We're focusing on being great. And that's what this life is about, is being the best version you can offer to the world. And my whole mantra and the things I do, the businesses I built are designed to try to really impact people's lives in a positive way.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate you. I consider you a friend, even though we've just spent this evening together. But you, from here on, you're somebody I've already looked up to you for a long time. And thank you for being accessible to me. You were accessible from the gate. We've communicated off and on for probably a year and a half, really, to get you here, because you're busy. I'm busy. It just didn't, the schedule, etc. But man, thanks a lot for sharing your story tonight. And this is probably one of the nicest, one of the most informative episodes I've had out of the 63 episodes. And that's saying a lot. I've had some exceptional people on here, but you're somebody special, believe me. And you've really made my night tonight. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, check out his books, check out his website, check out his podcast. My gosh, the following on it's going to be incredible. It already is, I'm sure, no doubt. Your social media following is just insane. And just thank you for being in the world of law enforcement. You've really made a difference, and that's why I love people like you on the show. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, Jason, thank you for the kind words. Danny, thank you. Carrie, I appreciate all the comments. Look, the other thing I'm doing is trying to build up my YouTube right now, and I've actually jumped into the world of going over body cam videos, and we're actually having a lot of success already. People wanting to come see what the sheriff has to think about the body cam videos. Most of them are Karens, you know, like, are the people that are really cause problems for us in law enforcement. Yeah. And I break some of those down. But yeah, go to @RealAmericanSheriff on YouTube, @RealAmericanSheriff. And frankly, if you can't find it, just come to my Instagram page, American Sheriff, and I'll have links probably every day, which will get you to the YouTube page.
Perfect. The American Sheriff right here, ladies and gentlemen. Loved it. Check him out on his Instagram, on his website. Check out any of his books. I know that they would never be disappointed in any one of those. And tell your wife thank you for letting us borrow you tonight as well. And we don't want to forget about her. And check her book out as well. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like and subscribe this channel, because I want to get the word out as well. And it really helps me bring in guests just like the good sheriff here. And we appreciate each and every one of you. I agree. Carrie, he is inspirational. I agree that all of the comments that I've been reading over here, they've been just epic. Thanks a lot. I'll let you go. Stick around for a quick minute. And next week, we've got Steve Spagnola, the lead detective of the Jeffrey Dahmer case. Legend in the world. I know, he's big time, isn't he? Sheriff, he's a big one. He's one of those big time, well-known homicide detectives, and he'll be here next week. So hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you'll catch us next week. But until then, have a safe week. I look forward to you next weekend or next Friday. Check out the merchandise page if you're looking for some cool coffee cups, etc. And thanks for being here. And thank you again, Mark. I appreciate you, buddy. Take us out, Amanda.